Today we're going to take a brief look at the legacy of Jersey's wartime occupation by German forces. The Second World War began in September of 1939, and by June 1940 the German army had taken France and was looking to invade Britain. The Channel Islands had been declared a demilitarised zone on the 15th of June and any remaining service personnel withdrawn. Many islanders also left for England, but the majority of Jersey people remained. On June 28, 1940, several areas of the island were bombed and strafed by Luftwaffe aircraft, and islanders were ordered to display white flags as a sign of their surrender. On July the 1st, German forces arrived in the undefended islands, and almost 5 years of German occupation had begun. Though the Channel Islands were of little military importance, capturing British territory was a major propaganda coup, and when in later years the German war effort first stalled and then retreated, the symbolic holding of the Channel Islands became even more paramount in the minds of the German High Command. An enormous amount of resources were poured into the islands, with slave workers, many from Eastern Europe, providing much of the labour, as the islands were fortified as part of the so-called Atlantic Wall. The work went on relentlessly for several years, but faltered as cement and steel supplies became scarce, and later, as Allied forces pushed through France, it dried up completely. On May the 8th, 1945, Germany surrendered, and on May the 9th, the Channel Islands were at last liberated, a day that remains an island holiday and is celebrated each year. After the occupation, there was a lot of clearing up to do, some of which was done by the captured German forces. But many of the islanders who had lived and nearly starved through the occupation only wanted to put the horrific experiences behind them. Bunkers and tunnels were sealed up, guns dumped either at sea or over cliffs, and fortifications that hampered access to beaches or other areas were gradually demolished. However, times change and memories gradually temper, and in the more recent years, particularly due to the efforts of the Channel Island Occupation Society, many of the bunkers and fortifications have been unsealed and restored. Along the coast, almost wherever you look, there will be a vestige of Jersey's wartime past. Many of the sea walls were built during the occupation, and in almost every bay there will be a bunker, gun emplacement, or lookout post somewhere to be seen. The west and southwest coasts were especially well fortified, and along St. Juan's Bay and the Le Land area, some form of defensive position can be found every few hundred metres. A myriad of tunnels were burrowed into the sides of the island's valleys. Some are still sealed, others used for storage. The Jersey War Tunnels, formerly called the Underground Hospital, is open to the public, and its display and exhibits go into great detail to explain Jersey's occupation history. Even inland, in the most unexpected places, relics of the 1940s remain, often in the most incongruous of settings. An enormous command centre disguised as a house in the middle of a field. Another amid an exclusive housing development. Former windmills repurposed as lookout towers, or gun emplacements in quiet country lanes. On the sand dunes, some of the fortifications have been buried by wind-blown sand, while others have been undermined, and in some areas fragments of bullets and occasionally an intact one can be found lying on the surface. Many of the structures have since been repurposed. This tower is now holiday accommodation. This a wetland visitor centre for the National Trust. And the Gunsight Cafe is just that, a cafe built in a gun emplacement. And for many years this tunnel was used as a mushroom farm. Now it's used for storage. Noirmont, the headland to the west of St Aubin's Bay, was particularly heavily fortified and now forms the heart of the island's memorial to those times. The enormous guns that had been tipped over the cliffs at Leland have since been recovered and can now be seen in their intended environment. There are exhibits detailing the German occupation in a number of the island's museums, and the Channel Island Occupation Society regularly open a variety of the fortifications throughout the year, and their volunteers are always both welcoming and knowledgeable. This video is only intended to give the most basic overview of what can be found of Jersey's wartime past. If you found it interesting and informative, please click the like button and subscribe to check out our other Jersey-related videos. I'm Richard, and this is brought to you by Jersey, a Guide.